Hey friends, welcome to the Johnson City Living Podcast, where we learn about the people, places, events, and flavors that make Johnson City just a lovely place to live. I'm your host, Colin Johnson, with the Colin and Carly Group and Keller Williams Realty. If you're interested in buying or selling a home in the area, or if you're looking at investing in a rental property, give us a call at 423-930-8003, and we will look forward to helping you. Now, let's get to today's episode. I've got a guest on here who already thinks I'm a little nuts, and that's probably good because she can probably help me out. We are joined by Georgiana Paolillo. I've practiced it 5 times and still didn't get it right. Who is an OCD and anxiety specialist who recently relocated to Johnson City from New York City.
Mm-hmm.
You picked the best city to come to, obviously. And so we're going to get ready to hang out and get to know you. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. And Johnson City Living Podcast, what do you love most about Johnson City?
And you're not allowed to say the weather.
You can't say the weather. You can't say mountains or people.
Yeah.
We're taking the top 3 answers off the board.
So my 4th answer is horses.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us more.
I was a horse girl trapped in New York City far too long.
Okay.
So yeah, that is like my favorite thing to do in my downtime is hang out at Breezy Meadows Equine and like clean stalls and take care of horses.
Yeah.
And yeah, it helps me like feel relaxed. And it's awesome because in Johnson City, it's so accessible.
It really is. There's horse stalls on every corner almost.
Yeah.
How did you grow up in like New York City proper?
No, so I'm originally from Ohio.
Okay.
But then I moved to New York for undergraduate school and stayed. So pretty much from 18 on, I was in New York and then went to school there, grad school there, worked there, met my partner there. And we actually wound up down in Tennessee thanks to him.
Okay.
He is a surgeon who works at ETSU and JCMC.
Gotcha.
He was in a private practice and really missing that like educational element to his work. So yeah, there was an opening at ETSU and it brought us to Johnson City. So we kind of bought a house the first time we ever stepped foot here, but no regrets.
Yeah, I hate that we're meeting now instead of like 2 years ago when you were moving here, but we'll get through it. We'll work through it. It'll be okay. It's going to be okay, Colin. Okay. So did you grow up with horses then? Like in Ohio, did you ride and just have an affinity for them? And now you're like, hey, I get to live that out now.
Yeah, I always enjoyed trail riding growing up, and it was never a huge part of our life. It was always something I wanted more of, but you know, horses are a big commitment. It's a lot of time, a lot of effort. And I guess the first go around, I guess I chose New York City and it wasn't a compatible thing. But I mean, listen, it's one of the exciting parts of getting to move around the country is to try new things, right? So if I find myself in East Tennessee with all these beautiful horses and access, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always wonder how maybe your parents were enjoying, like they were horse equine people, or
I don't know. I made my mom decorate my bedroom to look like a horse barn as a small child, so I don't really know what that was, but now it's making more sense.
Right. You're like, oh, okay, maybe I was just envisioning it in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool. All right. So give us a little background in your life and how you got into like studying people with OCD and anxiety disorders, or maybe it's not even a disorder. It's just kind of what we have sometimes, I feel like.
Sure. You know, my journey with OCD is kind of started accidentally. I attended Pace University in New York for graduate school, studying mental health counseling. You have to do a clinical internship while you're in school. So it's kind of your first time really getting an opportunity to sit across from patients. You're sort of trying to figure out what you want to specialize in then and like what you want to do. The only thing I knew was that I wanted to practice cognitive behavioral therapy, and that is because it is an evidence-based, solution-focused form of therapy. So I think that all therapy has the possibility to have amazing qualities, you know, like reflecting on your own life and like learning from it is such a privilege, but it's not all necessarily evidence-based, right? So meaning like we have studies that say what we're doing works for specific things, right? So I knew I wanted to be under that umbrella. I wound up at the Center for Cognitive Behavioral Psychotherapy in New York, New York, which is Dr. Steve Phillipson's practice. Little did I know at the time that he's an OCD specialist and one of the leading specialists in the country. So basically, from day one, I wound up treating OCD, and it was like the perfect marriage overnight. It was so interesting to me, so exciting. Kind of some of it was so backwards from like the world I was used to living that like I was just all in from that moment. So I spent that whole year working with Dr. Phillipson, learning to treat OCD there. And then at that point, I knew that that's kind of what I was meant to do with this next phase of my life. So I kind of, after graduation, lined up the rest of my training opportunities to sort of align with the OCD focus. And that led to working with New York Anxiety Treatment in Manhattan. When I got there, it was just the individual private practice of Dr. Anna Edwards. I had actually sought her out as an OCD specialist to finish my training. So I did my you have to do like 3,000 hours or something after you graduate from school before you become fully licensed under the supervision in someone else's practice. So I did that with her and was still like never had been happier treating OCD. The interesting thing, so I feel like in order to describe what I did next, we should probably talk a little bit about what OCD is
Okay.
because let me ask you, when you think of OCD, Colin, what do you think of?
I think about lining up all my pens and pencils on my desk in a perfect order, or like
Right.
when I was a kid, I would take all the Lego blocks and put all the colors together, and then I'd figure out which one, like trying to just be super organized. Or there are times where I'm like, okay, I want the yard mowed just a certain, like when I mow the yard, it's
Yeah.
got to be just, like, so like structure,
So here's the
how I
thing.
structure.
I think that your perception of OCD is really, really common. This is how people
Yeah.
think of it. You think of it like organizing, you think about it people who want to be super clean, super neat, people who kind of like are maybe
I
self-soothing
think
from
we've
doing
probably
a
been
behavior like that.
programmed that through that for like through movies and shows and that kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. That it could be a sign of anxiety that you feel like better if things are more organized,
Gotcha.
but it doesn't necessarily mean it's OCD.
Okay.
Okay. So what is and part of us using the term, like people saying I'm so OCD, OCD is not an adjective, but after like decades of use like an
Right.
adjective,
Right.
I think that people tend to get a misunderstanding of what you're actually dealing with.
Right.
So when you have obsessive compulsive disorder, your amygdala, which is the part of the brain that is like responsible for looking out for threats all the time, right?
All the time.
I think of
Right.
it like the little guy out in the ocean in a lookout tower who's just constantly going, okay?
He's like looking for the boats.
So when your anxiety and when everything is working correctly, like let's say you're walking down a city street at night and someone that you don't know feels like they're walking too close. You get that feeling where like the hair on the back of your neck stands
Yep.
up, you automatically speed up. There's an automatic physical response to your brain sending an alarm that says you might be in a little bit of danger right
Right.
now. You don't got to think through what you do, you kind of just behaviorally respond, right? This is what happens when that part of the brain is working in the functional optimal way. If you're dealing with OCD, your amygdala is sending off a fight or flight response to stimuli that doesn't warrant it. So that might mean like so instead of just actually sending off that impulse when you are in danger, it could be ringing it a whole bunch of times throughout the day for a lot of different reasons, where your body then goes into that physical response and you feel it. Maybe like your palms are sweaty, your like heart is racing, you are you feel really jumpy and on edge, but there's nothing wrong, right? So OCD, one of the reasons it's so interesting, and I've been more than happy to kind of devote my professional practice to treating it, is because, listen, it never gets boring. OCD is unlimited. So, like, for example, the people that I have worked with who have cleaning and organizing compulsions, they are not cleaning and organizing because they're like trying to make it neat or tidy. Normally, that behavior is actually the compulsion to try to neutralize the obsession. So, let me give you an example of what OCD might actually look like for
Yeah.
someone.
Break it down for
Okay.
us. Yeah.
I'm going to give you a scenario that
And this is fascinating because I think I've been misled.
Well, it's also hard to find help if you don't know what you're dealing with,
Right.
right?
For sure.
So, okay. So I'm going to give you an example of harm OCD. So let's say there is a couple sitting down having dinner. All right. They're sitting there chatting and like they disagree about something. And one half of the couple, she thinks, oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated. I just want to kill him. You know,
That
all
never happens, by the way.
right? Like, I mean, we've all been there,
Right.
we've all been
100%.
there where we get really frustrated with someone we care a lot about and like have a random intrusive thought,
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
Now, if for an individual with OCD, let's say the amygdala rings off a fight or flight response to, oh my gosh, I feel like I want to kill him right now. That might look like someone's brain then countering with, oh my gosh, why did you think that? Did you think that because you're a murderer? Are you like, who has those thoughts? Like, only someone who actually wants to kill someone has those thoughts. So, like, how are you going to do that? Oh my gosh, this butter knife, this better not touch this butter knife right here because it might increase the odds that I'm going to do something, right? So, this is what it looks
Kind of like a spiral.
Yeah, this is what it looks like when the amygdala sends a fight or flight response to something that doesn't warrant it.
Gotcha.
The brain picks it up and it wants 100% certainty that we are getting rid of the threat. Okay. But the problem is that if the trigger is not rational, right, and the trigger is a thought you had or the butter knife, what are you supposed to do with that? Right. So this example would lead to, let's say, this person gets rid of all the butter knives in their house. They switch only to plastic knives because they don't want to accidentally lose control
We'll
at
just
some
spread
point.
stuff with spoons. It'll be okay.
And
Right.
I mean, listen, it's like, yeah, you don't have butcher knives. Like, forget about like everything that you're actually cooking. But now listen, this person has an intense fear that they might lose control and harm the person they care about because of the way their brain responded to the initial thought, right?
So then they're always in this like stress level because they're like
Exactly.
out there sitting there going, "What am I screwed up?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the hardest things that you see with every single case of OCD is it's what we call ego dystonic. So that means that in spite of how bad they feel or how scared they feel or how uncertain they feel, intellectually, they'll say things like, listen, I don't want to think this. I don't even really believe this, but like when it's happening, it feels real. And all that intellect just goes out the window and I kind of behaviorally respond,
Gotcha.
right?
Right.
That's what we call an ego dystonic presentation. So what that often leads to is really a lot of isolation for the OCD population because you kind of know that if you tell someone, hey, I'm afraid I might kill you with this butter knife, like I might just lose control right now, they're going to be like, what? Like, that's a weird thing to say.
Right.
You also feel terrified by the thought and wouldn't say it as calmly as I just did there
Right.
in the example, right? So yeah, it's OCD is a really interesting beast. So, like I said, this is unlimited. So it could be to like intrusive thoughts that you're having. There could be, I mean, I know I've worked with patients who like washing hands. I think that's another really common compulsion that people are kind of
Mm-hmm.
aware of. I've very rarely worked with anyone who's washing their hands to be clean. People are normally washing their hands for any other million numbers of reasons. Sometimes your brain is like, wash your hand 10 times and you won't worry about this anymore.
Like a fear-based.
Kind of like because again, you're dealing with the amygdala sending fight or flight response, sometimes with questions that like really can't be answered fully, right? So like in intrusive thoughts, like I said, they can come and really like for example, is something bad going to happen to my partner tomorrow? We don't know, right? But if you have OCD and your amygdala is ringing off a fight or flight response to that, you might go through what the outside world would see as a lot of rational behaviors trying to get certainty, like double checking the schedule, asking them to check in on you, trying to figure out, trying to get that answer. Now, why is OCD so debilitating? Because it is the only thing that we can't really treat the same way we rationally treat everything else. So, this is where I'm going to say, welcome to the upside down world, Colin, where I tend to live and operate most of the time, the upside down world with OCD.
That's cool. I think, I think it's neat that you've chosen this, right? I mean,
I don't know if it chose me or I chose it, but like it's
it's fascinating, I think.
I think so.
And I'm assuming that you're helping people kind of get through it. Like, do you have
It's
success stories? And
totally.
yeah,
So, I
and that's
mean,
rewarding for you, and so that's why you continue your practice, right?
it's so I like to treat really, really severe OCD.
Okay,
So to kind of bring it back to some of my history before I got here.
yeah, that'd
So
be great.
this is the population that I work with. You often so dose of treatment for OCD is like actually how much therapy you're doing, how much exposure response prevention under the CBT umbrella you are doing to treat your OCD. So the second I start working with someone, I start giving them lots of like homework and stuff they can do outside of session.
What's the CBT
So
acronym for?
cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay,
So yeah,
just
that's
for our
kind of
listeners who may
yeah,
not
of
know,
course. And
and for
that's
me.
really that is CBT is an evidence-based therapy modality.
Okay,
It is used to treat a lot of different things. It's used to treat less severe anxiety and depression all the time. It is also kind of the umbrella where treatments like exposure response prevention fit under, which also treat like the more severe anxiety disorders.
gotcha.
Um, since you are trying basically when you do exposure response prevention, so that part of the brain that the amygdala where it's misfiring through exposure therapy, we retrain the brain. The interesting thing about all of our brains is it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, it's constantly able to learn, right? You can really teach it anything. You can also unteach it anything if you work hard enough, right? So what has happened to an individual with OCD is that amygdala misfired fight or flight and they responded to it in a rational way. Like they felt scared. They did all the things that someone is scared would do. Like any of us would do that. It's not weird, right? But I always tell people if you could have talked your way out of this, you would have done it before you ever met me. The way out of this is through behavior.
Gotcha.
So that's where I bring it back to like, welcome to the upside down world where all the ways you thought you were going to fix this don't apply here. And I'm going to teach you something new. So the
Super cool.
woman with the knife
Yeah.
sitting next to her.
Butter knife lady.
If you're scared you're going to stab someone, it rationally makes sense to get rid of the weapon, I guess, right? That makes sense.
Upside down,
However,
let's surround ourselves with butter knives. Let's buy them all.
exactly. Hey, now you're getting it. Colin.
Yes.
Yes, we're almost there. So that actually getting rid of the knife, what that does, or treating the knife like it's dangerous, actually reinforced the part of the brain that fired off the fight or flight response initially. So she thinks she's getting away from the fear by hiding the knife, but you're reinforcing it.
Right.
You're teaching your brain that was dangerous.
Yeah.
So let's say, and again, I'm giving really basic, simplistic examples of
For
this
sure.
so that it's hopefully easy to understand. But on the alternative, someone who's been trained in exposure response prevention is going to be able to identify, okay, my brain is ringing fight or flight response to this knife. I really have no idea if I ever might lose control and hurt someone. Like none of us know. And that actually is scary if you think about it too long. But in spite of feeling that way, I value living a normal life, finishing this dinner, not giving into my OCD. So I'm going to use the knife, right? Now, that all sounded very easy and nice and in a bow when I said it, but you have to imagine that when the person is going through that, their natural system is in fight or flight.
Okay.
So your body wants to literally run or behaviorally do a bunch of stuff to get rid of the threat.
Yeah.
And I'm essentially asking people to learn how to sit in the burning building with me.
Okay. So let's take it from the top. Like,
yeah,
we're in a conversation like that. My wife Carly and I have some thought. I shouldn't say crazy because that's
Sure.
not cool. We're all a little on the edge for
Yeah.
sure. And so, what's my first, so my first response is like you're saying, I want to run, fight or flight, or I
Yeah.
want to grab the butter knife or whatever. And then I go, no, that's not right. And then, so what do I do next? What's the next
Yeah,
step?
so the first thing that someone with OCD is going to learn to do is going to be to identify the actual core fear.
Okay.
This is, for this person, it's OCD is making it about a butter knife right now, but really it's about wanting 100% certainty that they're not going to lose control with their partner and do something they regret, right? So the first part of treatment is really teaching someone how to identify the core fear and like what their OCD is protecting.
Okay.
Remember, anxiety, we all have anxiety. Like you have to have it or you would just die the second you walked out to the street. You would get like impaled with something that you should have seen, right? Like we
Oh, there's a car coming. Okay.
exactly. Like we have to have
Some sort of
anxiety.
protection. And so you're saying anxiety protects us
Exactly. Anxiety
or
protects us.
motivates us, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, if I'm going to let Georgiana down by not doing whatever I told her I'd do, then there's some sort
Exactly.
of
It
motivator.
reminds us of
Right.
things. And it's not, I think the word anxiety can get like a really bad rap a lot of the
Sure.
time because it sounds negative.
And I think a lot of people put a blanket, oh, I'm just anxious or I'm stressed or I'm worried, I'm just a worrier or whatever.
Totally. But and I mean, well that I feel like is I could have a whole conversation with you about why I think people marginalize their own mental health, but that's what that's doing, right? Like saying, "Oh, I'm just anxious." That's depending on what type of anxious you are, this could be a really big deal and really distressing, you know? And that's part of what I want to do is empower people to not kind of marginalize their own symptoms.
Yeah,
Like, even if, so for me, anxiety is a big spectrum. We have to have it.
for sure.
OCD is on that spectrum. When things get to a certain level of dysregulated, your brain starts working in the obsessive compulsive way, right? But it's, they always talk about OCD being chronic. Of course it's chronic. We can't get rid of someone's anxiety. Again, we need it. So this is just about I tell people, listen, there's a little part of your superpower here that's out of control. It doesn't understand when it's supposed to be used and when it's not. We are going to retrain that through behavior, right? And we take it slow. We build a hierarchy, meaning we like typically start with like easier things, getting to more challenging
Okay.
things. But essentially, like the person who is sitting on at the table in that situation doing it skillfully is kind of able to learn to identify I'm in fight or flight. They can identify their core fear. I'm scared of this. And why do I value hitting pause on that right now to stay present on this conversation with another person? And that could be, people's motivation to treatment could be any different number of things. It could be as simple as like, I love this person outside of being annoyed with them right now, and I don't want to ruin the evening.
Right.
It could be as simple as that, right? And the interesting thing, when you hit next on your brain like that and actually give it permission to exist in the background, but choose the life in front of you on the foreground, that is what helps carve a new neural pathway. When your brain tees up worry about this and you kind of pass and give it space to
Mm-hmm.
exist, but focus on something else, I don't really think of it as distraction. I think of it as coexisting
Gotcha.
because the person with severe OCD at times might always hear a little bit of the intrusive thought whispers, feel that in the background. It's just the way it is. But you can normalize living with that in the
Right.
background if you're able to live a really full life in the foreground.
So in the midst of this conversation, there's conflict. What do you tell the person just to pause? Like, why don't you just stop, like, and take a drink or think about something that is great about the person, like go to gratitude. I mean, like, what would be
I
your
mean, it is truly, yeah,
different for everybody,
it's
maybe?
what works for everybody is different, but it's about slowing down
Yeah.
and it's about noticing that your brain is a creative place and it can have distressing thoughts. And just because one pops up, you're still in control of if you choose to follow that in the
Right.
moment or not.
Right.
Right
Yeah.
now, again, someone who has those skills has probably been in treatment for a minute, right? Because again, in order to get someone to that point, I'm first doing a lot of exposures with you in my office where your anxiety gets really triggered and maybe you're not handling it as skillfully. But that's when, it's exposure response prevention. So the exposure is like the doing of the hard thing that's triggering.
Okay.
Response prevention, it's a important piece of that because response prevention is all the tools that help you deal with this later in the day. So like let's say you did the skillful thing at lunch, you used the knife, you didn't give in, you kind of kept it quote unquote normal for everybody on the outside, right? And then you get home and your brain is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you did that. Why did you do that? That was really dangerous. You need skills then as well. You
Okay.
need
Yeah.
there's different behavioral strategies to kind of help someone get out of their head and stop interacting with that as much. I call a lot of the time Obsessions, it's easy to contextualize those as thoughts, but sometimes even the compulsion is the way we're thinking. When you are thinking about the same thing over and over and over again and playing it out in a million different ways, that within itself can be the compulsion. So sometimes people have physical compulsions. Maybe
Right.
they're like doing any number of different physical behaviors to try to neutralize distress.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time, they're thinking. So no one sees this, but your brain is doing the compulsion and constantly kind of swooping up your OCD while you're at it.
Is that from a like where how does it get started? Like I think we
Yeah.
is it chemical or is it trauma
So
based or is it like
so
fear
like
based or
well, like most mental health disorders, OCD is a mix of genetics and environment. So, do people have like certain genetic predisposals? Sure. But the environment, like what happens around you, what happens in your life, how that's dealt with, all of that is also going to come into play,
well, I heard the
right?
other day, like, people go, well, it's genetic. I can't help it or what. And
Mhm.
I listened to somebody on a podcast and it was like, well, yes, you have, but it's only 20% maybe of your body's actually, affected by the genetic part of it. You
Mhm.
can like, I mean, there's 80% too that you can work on and change. Like you don't have to
Totally.
just say, well, my genetics say I'm whatever and
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. Or I'm gonna be sick because, my parents
But
both had heart attacks or
you
whatever.
know what though? Sometimes I think sometimes it's really scary to believe you could do something about the hard thing, and I think it can be easier to sometimes try to maybe accept that you can't and just live with it. Like, especially if there's other things in your life that you can see that are good. I think a lot of people don't necessarily give themselves the grace to figure out what's really wrong. They're just like, "Oh, I'm anxious. Everyone in my family's anxious. Everyone's crazy. Like, forget it."
Right.
Um, and I just, I, r- and here's the thing, maybe that's the case,
Maybe it
right?
is, but you would say that this is changeable because I heard you say it's a behavioral pattern that you can change.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
even though OCD is chronic, and if anyone tells you they can completely cure your OCD, you should go somewhere
Watch
else
out.
because they're
Okay.
lying. However,
You're just gonna bring it down 80%.
well, I can teach you how to live fully with it.
Okay.
And one thing we always say, or I always say in OCD treatment, is symptom reduction cannot be the goal, it's the dividend.
Gotcha.
Because again, this is a bit of that upside down world
Right.
thing. If you are constantly watching for the pot to boil, are you boiling? Are you boiling? Are you boiling? It feels like it's never boiling. So
Right.
if the person with OCD is constantly like, am I better yet? Am I better yet? Am I still anxious? That's becomes a compulsion and kind of feeds it.
Yeah.
So, it's yeah, it's a hard thing because I think that you know, it requires being willing to teach people how to sit with really triggering emotions. But I have never felt more privileged or more powerful being given the opportunity to teach people that. Like, what a beautiful thing to be able to sit with something that's painful that we can't control and survive it and get to the other side without having to like manipulate it,
Yeah, how
you
much
know?
joy does that bring you? Like, because people are like, they're stuck in this
To-
cycle and pattern over and over, and it affects their day, their week, their month, their years and years. And then you're like, hey, I can help.
I mean, yeah, it's the most meaningful thing to me in
Like,
the
you've
world.
changed people's lives. Like,
Colin, I am so lucky. I mean, this was not my first career. I've done other things. I realized I wanted to work with people, and I already said it to myself once today. Like, before I go into work, I think everybody sometimes doesn't want to go to work. Like, we all have that. It doesn't matter how much you love your job. And then like I remember, oh, I get to do magic with people, and this is awesome, and I
mhm.
love this. So, all the work I was doing in New York, we wound up creating an intensive outpatient program for OCD. I developed that treatment, and it was the first in the greater New York area. It's still running. It's a 6-week intensive outpatient program for individuals, adults with OCD. It's 6 weeks long. It is kind of a middle level of care where if you had been in individual treatment and kind of not hitting your goals, but also weren't really in a place where residential treatment was something you needed,
Right.
the IOP was created to fit that population. You know, I am really excited to be able to bring that level of care to Johnson City, and even I just had I just got my Tennessee license in July of 2025. So I've only been accepting patients here for a few months, and it is the OCD people are just waiting for someone to come along who knows what they're talking about, you know? So I'm trying to let people know I'm here. I'm in
Yeah.
Johnson City. I'm actually bringing a really cool OCD goal group to Johnson City. It's going to be every other Tuesday night in June. It's a great place to kind of have an additional place to practice your exposure skills while also like decreasing that stigma around OCD and increasing the sense of community. So, you know, when we started creating our groups in New York, I saw the way the magic within that community unfolded and how much faster people were able to create change with support.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm just really excited to have a space to start to do that here.
Yeah, I mean, talk about people. I think if you're, listening to this podcast and you feel like you have OCD, I think you probably think I'm different than everybody else.
What's wrong with me?
What's
I'm a
wrong with me?
monster.
What's going
A lot
on?
of
Why
people with
can't I?
OCD think they're like going crazy because they're remember I explained that ego dystonic, you're having thoughts you know you don't want to have,
Right.
and that in itself is scary.
Yeah.
And again, these are typically high functioning people who in a lot of other areas of their life are excelling just fine. And like I always say, this is where your superpower is just a little off its kilt, and we're gonna fix that, you
Gotcha.
know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is I feel very lucky to have stumbled upon the work as I have, and I feel really even more lucky to be able to continue to do it.
Yeah. That's cool. That's
Mhm.
cool. Let's pivot back to anxiety. Let's
Mhm.
go deep on that. Because I think a lot of people just kind of like we were saying, maybe I just deal with it. It's something I've got all the time. Like, can you talk to me about levels, like what's normal? Because you have to have some, you said, and
Yeah.
then talk about normal, and then like, oh, wait a minute, I may have
Yeah.
a problem here. If you're
So
listening,
this
somebody
is
listening
so
may go,
I
okay,
so this is actually have a nice simple answer for this.
okay,
Any mental health disorder is always only going to be diagnosed if it is affecting your functioning to a certain level. So, just because you're worrying isn't necessarily a reason like that you would meet like OCD criteria or even like generalized anxiety, low level anxiety. Now, if you're worrying so much that you are like unable to enjoy dinner with your family, that you feel too overwhelmed when it's time to go out and like do the plan you're supposed to do. You're not able to do your job because you can't concentrate. If your mental health is getting in the way of your functioning, you do not deserve to be dealing with that alone. And that's definitely when you ask for help,
gotcha,
right? So yeah, and another thing just to mention for the OCD community and people kind of, if you're trying to figure out if this is something you might be dealing with or not, I feel like I should mention one of the biggest compulsions with OCD is verbal assurance seeking from like safety people in your life, people that you trust, right? So, for example, in our conversation about the man and woman with the knife, she might constantly ask him, do you think I would ever kill you? Like does that sounds crazy to you
right,
too, right? Like you're seeking
yeah,
assurance in that way. A lot of the time, if there's an individual with OCD in your life, you're going to feel like you're having a lot of circular conversations that never land. Like, no matter if you say the rational thing, it's
right,
like their brain can't accept it.
yeah,
That is definitely a big sign. So, or if you are the person who is constantly repeating the same thing to other people and never feeling any better, that's another sign, right? It is normal to have ups and downs in our days. It is normal to feel depressed if something bad is happening or if you're having a hard time. It's normal to be anxious when we have a lot going on. However, if it is stopping you from being able to fully live in other areas of your life, that's where you're going to get into like, what would the diagnosis be, right?
gotcha,
Now, on that anxiety disorder, there's a lot there, right? Like I treat OCD and related disorders. So that means like panic disorder, specific phobias, emetophobia, which is like a fear of vomiting, agoraphobia, fear of leaving the house. I like to treat the really severe stuff on that side of the spectrum, but you know, generalized anxiety, social anxiety, all of this is like also really affecting people's everyday lives, you know? But
right,
like I said, it's about functioning. So if it is getting in the way of your functioning, you should ask for help. If it is the type of thing where you're able to like get over it in a few minutes on your own and move on.
Then it's not. Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's helpful, I think.
Mhm.
Maybe talk to us about some success stories. Like you've helped some people, like
Mhm.
specifically maybe that you don't really hear about much, but maybe somebody who's listening is like,
Yeah.
oh, I deal with that.
Totally. I mean, I'm gonna make sure I'm not gonna mention gender or anything when I'm talking because I
Yeah,
just
just
want to kind of
person
yeah.
has or whatever.
Yeah,
And
there was I mean, listen, there was an individual that I worked with who coming into treatment. So the tool we use to typically measure the severity of OCD symptoms is called the Yale Brown Obsessive Compulsive Scale. It goes up to 40. Basically anything from like 13 up shows like moderate going into severe OCD in the 20s. This person was dealing with a fear that they might accidentally say a word that could offend God, civilization, anyone that hears it. And if that word was said, they might never recover from that. Like the world could
right,
just
super
collapse,
fear.
right?
Okay,
So this person was in college at the time. They were so afraid to say the word that they were avoiding like all meals with friends. They were avoiding going out in public. They were avoiding going to classes because of a fear that they might accidentally hear it or say it. When you are avoiding that much in your life, your depressive symptoms can get really
yeah, that
bad. So
sounds really
then
sad for this
you're
person.
having
Yeah,
trouble showering, you're losing a lot of weight. And really, this was about teaching them how to embrace uncertainty with something you may or may not say that would hurt someone else, right? I wound up doing this therapy was all virtual. I'm licensed in 4 states, so I often do treatment
okay,
virtually.
that's cool.
The treatment was all virtual. I'm really happy to report that 9 months later, this person is graduated from school, working a full-time job in Manhattan, dating, hanging out, no issues with
That's
food,
awesome.
and fully living life. Now, does this person have OCD? Absolutely. Have they learned the skills in order to manage it so it doesn't take over their life? Absolutely. So typically, when I work with someone, I might work with you 2, even 3 times a week when I first start seeing you, depending on severity. Because again, dose of treatment is how much ERP you're going to do.
Gotcha.
And I need time to teach you, right? So we do a lot of sessions close together and then I space out. And then basically, we get to the point of graduation and OCD is chronic. You do not need to be in therapy forever. This was evidence-based and solutions focused for a reason, but I'm going to say save my number. And if and when the symptoms come out and the skills you have in this toolbox aren't working, call me. We
Right.
do 1 to 2 booster sessions. You're on your way. It's not like dealing with a full relapse, right? So that's honestly one of my other favorite things about what I do is like on one hand, I hope I never see people again because
Right.
they're
You're
doing
like,
so
hey,
great. But you know what? Like you have a great relationship with amazing people. And sometimes you do see them for 1 or 2 sessions 6 years later. And it's really helpful. And they have made the investment in therapy that was evidence-based with a clinician they had a good relationship with. And then they're able to draw on that. Right.
right. Because you're
Um,
reprogramming basically, right? I mean,
exactly.
like we're trying to teach ourselves to think differently that we did
Totally.
before. But sometimes we fall back into those old habits and you're just like, hey, I need to, I don't even know what's up and down. Where's the backside?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's cool. I think a lot of people probably are concerned that they can't get better, and I think that what you're doing, it does sound like you're helping them
Yeah.
on a pretty amazing level. Um, what you said you had an outpatient program
Hmm.
that you started and it's still going.
Hmm.
Is that something that you look at going, okay, I'd love to have this outpatient program in every city across the country? I mean, is that something that's
Uh, you know, I mean that would be goals. I mean, it would. And I know that Dr. Anna Edwards, who's the director of that practice in New York, I think she does have hopes to try to disseminate the treatment that way. I would love to be able. I don't know if I would necessarily do an entire IOP here, but I mean, listen, offering a higher level of care for OCD here, even without the IOP, is absolutely possible.
yeah,
There are a few other OCD providers on the ground here in Johnson City. I've met them. They're good, and actually we're stronger together
Sure.
because it's about how much treatment you can do with this community. So
What percentage of the population do you feel like suffers from OCD?
allegedly they say between 3 and 7%.
Okay.
So it's a lot.
So that's a lot, right?
And
I mean,
again, as I kind of explained to you today, you see how it's so easy to accidentally reinforce
mhm.
something like this. And this is, OCD is, I believe, the brain working extra fast. It's not, I don't see it as a deficit. I see it as something that's moving too quickly, like
Okay.
it's assuming something is bad when it isn't, kind of. Um, and so, yeah, I think that that opportunity to kind of work with that person and help them retrain that part is really useful.
Yeah. Do you see you're doing this? You're being a therapist for a long time?
Yes. I mean, what I love about being down in Johnson City, I mean, I want to like buy land down here and open up my like Willy Wonka OCD ranch where I can just do all the exposures my little brain can dream of and have like plenty of space. That's
Mitch and I'll be down for the Chocolate River.
yeah,
The
exactly.
Oompa Loompas he's got is like, yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Uh,
That's super cool. I think
yeah.
it's fun. I think it's neat how the Lord's made us all differently to where you have an affinity for this sort of work and
Mhm.
how Mitch has got an affinity for what he does. And it's just kind of cool how it takes a village and we're all doing different things. And I think it's awesome that you're helping heal people and
Thank you.
restoring them to where they can do their part, right? And be part of
Thank
the
you.
community. And
Yeah, it's really when you are lucky enough to do something that you really love and believe in, it's like nothing is more of a privilege.
yeah, and I think when you find that, it really isn't like work. It's like, this is fun. I
Mhm.
enjoy my job and I love what I do. I mean, it's just feel like you and I are in the same boat in
Yeah.
totally different realms. Um, is it, like, do you just work with adults, kids? What's the spectrum look like?
So I typically, for a long time, I only saw adults. I see older adolescents now as well.
Okay.
So 15, 16, 17. I know a lot of great providers for younger kids, and I'm always happy to like give referrals if people reach out. But yeah, I prefer to work with adults or older adolescents myself.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think a lot of, and maybe I think behavior, but anyway, there's a whole nother, we were talking about it before we got the, like, ADHD and like some of the
Mm-hmm.
autistic stuff and these different, diagnoses that I got my air quotes going that we put on people.
Yeah.
Um, and I think kids are so resilient. They're in a growth spot that we
Mm-hmm.
now, as I'm older, wish I was in, right? I wish when I hurt my muscles, I wish they would heal like that, like kids do. And
Mm-hmm.
those neural pathways are still fresh. And I would think you could retrain them early and
Yeah.
right. And then so you don't have 50 years
It's
of,
actually
yeah,
why I opened my practice to older adolescents
yeah,
because one of the things I saw in my work doing the IOP was half of the work doing good OCD treatment is undoing possible bad OCD treatment that someone had done before. And I'm not trying to cut anybody down by saying that. It's just like the reality of the treatment and the population and how hard the work is. So I love working with a younger person
yeah,
who's in an early onset of symptoms and they have never had to have that experience of trying treatment that didn't work. And yeah, you have like those fresh neural pathways. But you know what? I have done this treatment with people who are 16. I've done this treatment with people who are 82. It doesn't matter. Like, sure, it's great to help someone when they're young, but it's also I can't tell you how amazing it is to help someone in the later part of their life and let them enjoy even more their time, like whatever they have,
right. And I
right?
think they probably have a better understanding of themselves too and be like, oh, wow, I'm really changed. Whereas a kid may just be like, oh, that's the way I was or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you like balance? I don't know if you prescribe medication for some people versus is it all cognitive therapy based, like to where it's
Yeah.
all,
So, as a mental health counselor, I don't prescribe medication. However, with treating severe OCD, I really value my close relationships to those who do manage medication. So, as far as OCD is concerned, the gold standard of treatment for severe OCD is going to be exposure response prevention, CBT, what I do with proper medication. Now, proper medication for OCD usually means a higher dose of an SSRI. Again, you're going to be looking for psychiatrists who have experience treating OCD, because the way you manage medication for that is very different than the way you manage medication for lower levels of anxiety. Now, that being said, even though the gold standard for severe OCD is both at the same time, that doesn't, if anybody, has is it like for different values-based reasons doesn't want to take meds or wants to try to do it without, you absolutely can. And a lot of people, I prefer sometimes to start, if they're not already on meds, I'll start treatment without it and see how they're doing with some of the CBT.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how they're feeling. It's also a model where if it is the best choice for someone to go on medication and do treatment together, but they long-term don't want to be on meds, the CBT model is to eventually, once they hit the place of stability, if you've gone up with the gold standard, you can then reduce the medication slowly. And we have research that shows you maintain your gains. But that's only with doing the evidence-based treatment with meds, right? Like if you just take meds, you'll get your symptoms watered down a little bit, but not forever, because you're going to be reinforcing them still without the
And
behavioral therapy.
you're gonna get a resistance to the medication.
And
You're
it's
gonna
going
have to
to,
increase, and it just seems
exactly.
like not a good path long term for just medicating. And so I
Yeah,
love the therapy part
yeah,
because I
it's
think
great that there's like other options now, right, for people to do that.
I just feel like we've slapped a band-aid on it with medication across the board. I'm gonna say across the board in the
Totally.
medical world, and I don't know where that got started or why. There's probably a huge history on that, but I think like what you're doing is it seems to me it makes sense, right? It's like
Mhm.
we're okay. We want to work on muscles. We're gonna do bench press or whatever it is. We
Mhm.
can build that up and build that resistance.
You got to remember that like the medication was really just one of the first lines of defense that we've had for the longest amount of time. All the research that I reference when I'm saying evidence-based treatment for OCD, that's coming from like the 80s, 90s, 2000s up to current.
Yeah,
So it's like we didn't maybe always know we could offer it this way, but I think there is a big movement where people are realizing that like you have to have that relationship between the psychiatrist and the therapist and the patient and kind of look at it as like a team sort of going forward
yeah.
to help them meet their goals.
Do you feel this is just my brain spinning? Do you feel like OCD is as big in other countries, or is it like mainly like an American made organism
I've seen OCD all over the
over the world?
world.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was at my practice in New York, I had the opportunity to collaborate with psychologists in Norway, who are also doing a lot of research for OCD, and we did an intensive program in New York City in collaboration with them. Half the patients were from Europe. So in
It's
my
all over the place. Yeah.
like I said, it's a decent percentage of the population, so it's everywhere.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because you kind of like wonder where it's all coming from. I think, and being
Mhm.
a believer over here, I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot of good in like
Mhm.
in the Bible, angels. And so if you believe in angels and goodness and God, then on the other side of it, you got to believe in Satan and the demons and all the other stuff.
Mm.
And I feel like he's working hard on the backside against people and wanting to kill, steal, and destroy them. And so,
Mm.
yeah, if I can trick you into thinking this and getting you paralyzed, well, then you're not going to be helpful,
Yeah.
and then you're not going to help the kingdom. And so I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of spiritual play there, and I don't know where you
Well,
fall in that realm.
it's really interesting because I've actually had an amazing opportunity to work with a lot of different people with OCD who are very religious, but in like different ways, right?
Hmm.
Like different denominations. And I've also had an opportunity to work with like different religious leaders. So I've had, like, for example, a pastor in a session
Hmm.
before dealing with scrupulosity OCD, which is a more religious based theme, right? And as I'm sure you could imagine, as someone of faith, if you have a theme that's kind of religiously based, it might like really extra
Right.
scare you away
Yeah.
from trying to embrace the uncertainty. And I think one of the most helpful things that I heard um the pastor say in that session was like the way he the spin he put on treatment was like, by learning how to embrace uncertainty. Remember, like, God doesn't need you to be certain. He needs you to be brave enough to hold the uncertainty and let him stand there with you when you're
100%.
scared.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, and I just thought that was a really great way to kind of tie this in,
Yeah.
Yeah. And, yeah,
Because what else do you have to hold on to?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then it's all up to you, which is
Sure.
really kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's all up to me. And that's a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I've got the guy who made everything I'm looking at, he created the universe in like and that power
Yeah,
is
and it just
unbelievable.
and again, like, I have had an opportunity to do treatment with people from a lot of different backgrounds all over the country. OCD is a creative beast. Like, it doesn't care what your beliefs are or who you are or
It's
what's gonna
non-discriminatory,
try to
right?
find
Yeah.
a way
Yeah.
to kind of twist it.
Sure.
So, yeah, having the support of a lot of different actually like spiritual communities has been really helpful in letting me help a lot of different people with something so
That's cool.
challenging.
How do you, what do you feel like meditation and prayer and is that part of the practice in getting through this and
I mean,
getting it
listen,
growing?
and again, just because I'm trying to speak to like a broad audience
Sure.
here,
Yeah.
I think that I think that for prayer for people who are religious, maybe like mindfulness and meditation for those who are less religiously inclined, being able to sit with uncertainty in the present and accept that you don't have a certain amount of control,
Sure.
even when it's distressing.
Yeah.
I think that is for people who are of faith, I really try to help them like grab that piece in their treatment. And if you're not a person of faith that I'm doing treatment with, we will find other ways to kind of do it in a way that works for you.
Sure.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, the reason I'm never bored is because every single case of OCD is different. Even when there's some things that are the same,
Right.
it's still different. And I have to find a way to make the treatment work for that person.
Yeah.
And I'll do whatever it takes.
Well, yeah, and I think that's perfect because we're all different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's cool. All right. You ready for the quick
Yep.
speed round?
Yep.
This is specific for you. Biggest myth about OCD.
It's about being neat, organized, and clean.
Like I said, first thing, right? I was like, got to get my pencils on.
I was
Like,
I was really hoping you would open with something like that because it made it all work well, but go on.
Well, one small step someone can take today to improve their mental health.
Give yourself permission to look for help and stop telling yourself you don't deserve it.
Yeah. And I would say find someone. Like, don't be alone.
Well, again, like we think sometimes we're being strong when we hide our pain, but giving ourselves permission to say, like, I'm hurting and I need help is, I think, the most powerful thing.
Well, and I think, too, when you just hide out by yourself all the time, your problems become these big things that you're like, nobody else deals with this. But if you're in a community of people and you're like, hey, I worry about butter knives and killing people too. Oh, wow, cool. Like I'm not alone. I'm not on an island all by myself. Okay, I didn't realize that that's somewhat normal.
Exactly.
Most rewarding part about your work?
Oh, watching people live their life fully when they never thought it was possible. Watching them get to do things and enjoy pleasures that we all take for granted when they thought it was something they could never have.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
What's your favorite coffee shop?
Oh
in Johnson
gosh.
City?
So I really like Aunt Ruthie's.
Ruth, yeah.
Yeah, with those pretzels around the hot dog. Like, get
That is
out of
pretty
here.
good.
I come from the land of like New York dirty water dogs, and I'm never gonna talk bad about a New York hot dog, but I gotta say those pretzel wrapped hot dogs,
they are good. I've had one.
So good.
But the donuts, I mean,
also awesome, and the coffee. So it's just a win-win-win.
It is. If you're, it's calorie. So run there and then run back home somewhere. Okay. From New York, you guys are like huge pizza people. What's your favorite pizza place in Johnson City? Or are you like, it's all not New York style pizza? Like,
Okay.
we're suffering.
This is what I will tell you. I like Johnny Brusco's Pizza and Rock's Pizza as far as Johnson City options.
Yep.
However, my husband makes his own homemade pizza with our
Nice.
own homemade dough.
Okay.
And that, no matter what state I'm in, New York or otherwise, that's always going to be my favorite pizza is the Paolillo pizza.
I love it. I love it. A date night, where are you guys going?
We love Juniper.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, it's so
It's
good.
such a treat too. And then what's your favorite place to like go hike or hang out at a park?
So I really like Buffalo Mountain. I've had friends show me a few cool spots there. Yeah, and I think I'm a big paddle boarder, so like hanging out at like Boone Lake and stuff.
Yeah, now the lake's coming back up.
If I hadn't said horses, I would have said like the outdoor like sports that you could do in Johnson City.
Okay. What didn't I ask you that we should have talked about?
I think we covered our bases. Yeah, at some point I'm going to come back and talk about women's mental health for all my perinatal and postpartum moms, because we didn't get to that. That's like another, that's a whole nother thing.
It is a whole thing. And I think we know lots of new moms, and I think it's a huge deal that gets overlooked a lot. And you're supposed to suck it up because you got a baby and it's tough, but it'll get better. Right. And then sometimes you're like, oh, it's not getting better. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do people connect with you if they need some help?
So you can reach out to me via my website. It's gcpcounseling.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, GCP Anxiety Specialist.
Okay.
You can pretty much reach me through any of those platforms, and I am always happy to talk.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for what you do. It's cool to know somebody who's in that field and that space helping people. And I'm sure there are people listening that are like, oh, thank you for moving from New York to here. And and hopefully you'll reach out to them. And what would be something you'd want to say as we sign off for somebody who's like driving down the road, listening to our podcast, walking, taking a whatever, but they're listening and they're like, this could be me.
If you think that what I'm describing sounds like you, give me a call, because it doesn't have to be this hard.
Okay.
There is something you can do.
What's the timeline therapy? What does it look like for obviously there's a spectrum, but
it depends. That is something I discuss with someone after I do the intake. Once I get a look at like what they're dealing with, I give them some ideas of what I'm thinking. It's hard to say. I mean, the case I gave you an example of, that was one of the most severe cases I've ever treated, and it was about 9 or 10 months.
Okay.
Right? Like I said, this is the type of treatment where I want to make you your own therapist and get you independent as quickly as possible. It doesn't help your OCD if your OCD thinks you can only do this with me. So I want to teach people that independence fast.
That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you guys for listening. Reach out to Georgiana. She's going to take great care of you, help you, and just make you better, which is just awesome. So
thanks so much.
Thanks again for listening. Subscribe, share it with somebody. Maybe you're listening and you're like, this is my buddy or my sister or my niece or nephew or whatever, cousin, brothers, roommate. Send it away. Send it over to them so they can learn about Georgiana, and maybe reach out to her so she can continue to spread just the healing across our Tri-Cities area. So thanks again. Thanks for listening.